Welcome to this explainer. Today we've got a truly wild, incredibly layered story to unpack. We are going to untangle the chaotic, deeply emotional, and just absolutely sudden international retirement of cricket legend Ben Stokes. I mean, we're talking about a guy who essentially quit right in the middle of a workday. So if you're looking for a clear, structured breakdown of exactly what happened, why it happened, and what on earth it means for the future of the sport, well, you're in the right place. We're going to rely entirely on the data and the on-the-ground reports to try and make sense of a moment that literally stunned the sporting world.
To really grasp the sheer shock of this moment, check out this phrasing from Cricinfo's Vithushan Ihantaraja. This perfectly captures that blistering media reaction right out of the gate. The press didn't just see a player retiring, right? They saw a player making this highly visible, incredibly defiant statement. It was described by reporters as a mix of flames and frenzy. But that's really only half the story.
Because when you contrast that fierce, sensational media interpretation with Stokes' own words, it's starkly vulnerable. Speaking about a very real conversation with his wife, he admitted that he simply didn't have any more fight left in him to get over this. And that right there is the dual narrative we're exploring today. On one side, you have this sensational, chaotic, defiant exit dominating the headlines, and on the other, a heartbreakingly honest admission of pure physical and mental exhaustion from a guy who had just pushed himself to the absolute limit.
Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1, the Trent Bridge bombshell, a chaotic farewell.
Walk with me through this incredibly rapid timeline, because the sequence of events at Trent Bridge in June 2026 was just bizarre. So it's day 4 of the deciding test match against New Zealand. England's out in the field. Suddenly, just 15 minutes before the afternoon tea break, the news drops. Stokes is retiring immediately after this match. Then, with a flair for the dramatic you literally couldn't script, he takes a wicket with his very first delivery after the announcement. But wait, it gets stranger. Evening session rolls around. England is facing a massive 373-run target. Stokes, in a wildly uncharacteristic move, promotes himself to open the batting, facing the fast, bouncing new ball head-on. He proceeds to just smash 30 runs off 20 balls in this reckless, barnstorming display before getting out, which triggers a late collapse of 4 wickets for 45 runs. Commentators like Michael Vaughan were watching this unfold and calling the timing of all this utterly random and just a completely bizarre way for a legend to bow out.
And honestly, you can totally see why the pundits reacted the way they did. Journalist Ben Jones went as far as calling that final innings a tantrum. The general vibe from the commentary box was that elevating himself to open and just slogging recklessly, well, it felt a lot less like a strategic masterclass to win a test match and a lot more like a defiant middle finger to his employers. It was viewed by numerous reporters as an orchestrated, self-indulgent spell of pure chaos, which, let's be real, is a pretty spectacular way to hand in your 2 weeks' notice.
Section 2. The breaking point. Why walk away now?
To truly understand this, we need to shift gears from the sensationalism of day 4 and look at the why. Why walk away now? The reasons, as Stokes himself outlined them, are super heavy. He pointed to 15 solid years of physical exhaustion. At 35, he admitted that just preparing his body to walk out and play for his country had become this brutal, tiring battle. Then there's the mental burnout. But perhaps the biggest factor, he highlighted the lingering emotional scars from England's crushing 4-1 Ashes defeat in Australia the previous winter. He openly admitted that while he'd always prided himself on overcoming setbacks, this time around he just felt completely empty.
But we also have to look at the surrounding context here, specifically the recent off-field drama. See, prior to this Trent Bridge match, Stokes was suspended from the second test for breaking curfew at a nightclub following the series opener at Lord's. It was an incident that reportedly left a security guard needing stitches. Now, according to media reports, Stokes felt totally thrown under the bus by the England and Wales Cricket Board, arguing that the specifics of the curfew weren't actually communicated properly. Pundits noted that cricket chief Rob Key and coach Brendan McCullum stopped short of publicly backing Stokes to the media, so Michael Vaughan and others were openly questioning, was this soured relationship and the utter chaos of that curfew scandal the final nail in the coffin that pushed him out the door? Moving on to Section 3, a legacy of miracles, quantifying the legend.
We absolutely have to zoom out for a second and remind ourselves why losing Ben Stokes is such a monumental earthquake for international cricket. 7,273. That staggering number is his career total for test runs across 122 matches. It's a massive figure that highlights just how incredibly reliable and powerful he was in the middle order.
But you have to couple those runs with this number right here. 252. That is his career total for Test wickets. Showing up as a top-tier batsman is one thing, right? But serving as a relentless, strike-taking fast bowler at the exact same time, that showcases his absolute dominance as a true elite all-rounder.
And this brilliantly illustrates just how rare that combination actually is. If you comb through the entire extensive history of Test cricket, looking for players who have hit that double milestone of 7,000 plus runs and 250 plus wickets, you're going to find exactly two names, Ben Stokes and South Africa's Jack Cullis. That's it. That is the whole list. It puts him in incredibly elite, historic company.
But honestly, beyond the pure stats, his legacy is really defined by these unforgettable miracles. Think back to the 2019 World Cup final, where his 84 not out pushed England to that historic tie and super over victory. Or just weeks later, that astonishing 135 not out at Headingley, which is widely considered one of the greatest Test innings of all time. I mean, he single-handedly dragged England from a humiliating 67 all out to complete a record Ashes chase of 359. Then he top-scored again in the 2022 T20 World Cup final. And of course, alongside Brendan McCullum, he co-created the fearless, ultra-attacking Bazball era, a philosophy that just completely revitalized the traditionally slow pace of Test cricket. He was the guy England always turned to when they needed a miracle.
Which brings us to Section 4, England's uncertain future, the void left behind. So what happens now? This is the multi-million-dollar question. Can England survive without him? When you look at the team dynamics today, there is now a massive, glaring hole in the middle order. They have to find a new number 6, a crucial mid-game player who can bat, bowl, and field at an incredibly elite level. But maybe even more importantly than the stats, they're losing their captain and the undisputed alpha leader of that dressing room.
And we're already seeing the fallout. It is severe. That loss to New Zealand marked England's first home series defeat of 3 or more matches since way back in 2012. On top of that, they've sunk to 7th place in the World Test Championship standings, having not won a series in nearly 2 years. This cascading failure means that intense media pressure is now falling squarely on the shoulders of head coach Brendan McCullum. You've even got former players like Steve Harmison publicly stating that McCullum should probably follow Stokes right out the door.
Then there's the whole issue of succession. Stokes has thrown his 100% backing behind his vice-captain Harry Brook to take over the Test captaincy, but as reporters are quick to point out, it's a pretty complicated picture. Brook has undeniable talent, for sure, but he is currently stuck in the middle of a worrying batting slump. Plus, handing him the captaincy is viewed by some as a huge gamble given his own disciplinary baggage. Remember, he was involved in a nightclub altercation last year in Wellington. Relying on Brook to step up and lead across multiple formats with his current form and history, that is a very tall order.
Which leaves us with this final, provocative thought. With the highly anticipated 2027 Ashes series against Australia looming in the distance, what does all of this mean? Well, pundits in The Telegraph are predicting that without Stokes as leader, England's chances of regaining the Ashes have instantly halved, dropping from around 30% to just 15%. He was the one player the Australians actually feared. Now, Stokes himself stated he is absolutely done and will be watching the Ashes from a hospitality box. Yet, the media is already leaving the door cracked open. Let's not forget he came out of ODI retirement once before, and Moeen Ali famously reversed his Test retirement for an Ashes series. So, did a man who built an entire legacy on delivering the impossible just burn his church to the ground, or is there room for one last miraculous return? It is a fascinating question to ponder. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep focusing on the facts, and I'll catch you next time.